Okay, let's take a look. Parshas Vayeira, page 78. Vayeira love Hashem be'elonei mamre, hu yoshev b'sacha oil kachomim. Hashem appears to him in elonei mamre, from Avinu, and he was sitting by the entrance of the tent at the heat of the day. Now, here we're starting the section of Avram Avinu is now 3 days after the Bris Milah. And the court, page 78. Avram Avinu is 3 days after the Bris Milah. And Rashi says that Hashem came to him to visit the sick, Bikur Cholim, which is a big mitzvah. The Torah starts with Chesed. Hashem, the Gemara says that the Torah starts with Chesed, which is Hashem providing clothing for Adam and Chava, even though they had sinned to need clothing. But the Torah begins with Chesed, and the Torah ends with Chesed. It's Hashem burying Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's chesed in between. Everywhere you go, it's called Torah's chesed. The Torah is called Torah's chesed, the Torah of chesed. And the hallmark of the Jew is the chesed. Jews just do for other people. There's no such thing as not doing. Obviously, you don't have to do everything everybody asks you. It depends on who asks you. It depends what the circumstances are. If your grandfather asks you to go upstairs and get him a pillow, so you go upstairs and get your grandfather a pillow. If you're sitting watching TV and your brother says to you, "Hey, can you go upstairs and get me a pillow?" So then, you'll get a pillow, all right. So chesed doesn't mean that you become, for lack of a better term, you become a sucker. You're not. That's when Hebrew they call it a fryer. In Hebrew, you become a fryer. You don't become. That's not what chesed is. It's got to be a certain balance. I actually had an incident here in the yeshiva with a guy went out with somebody. With a girl, and he had asked me about the Shidduch, and we checked out the Shidduch. And I remember when I checked out the girl, so what you do is when you're checking something out, so you call people. You call that's not checking out in the context you're thinking of. No, it's not check out the girl. That's not what I meant at all by any stretch of the imagination. Checking out, there are shidduchim that have happened because a guy happens to notice a girl over the mechitza. That does happen. A guy notices the girl notices the guy. So it happens. Listen, we're human beings. The guy sees a girl and he wants to find out. Or the guy checks out the girl's father's bank account. That's certainly a good way to check out a shidduch. But what normally happens is you do a character reference. So this guy went out. The girl was apparently... the girl had davened in the yeshiva, and somehow the shidduch got started. The girl was very impressed by the guy's kavanah. The guy's davening. She was very impressed at his kavanah in davening. So my wife said, when I told my wife said, "Don't be an idiot." He happened to be a very good-looking guy, and she probably got a good look at him when he turned around on l'chadodi. She got a good look at him. Like my wife said, a lot of guys were davening with kavanah there. Why'd she notice him? Which was true after she said it. I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So I checked out. I called the girl's teacher. What you do is you call teachers, you get a character reference, and then I called the girl's roommate. Always good to call a roommate because the teachers and authority figures get one perspective, roommates get a different perspective. So, roommates could tell you, well, if you know how to ask the questions properly, teacher say, she does leave razor blades in the shower periodically. You get a different perspective, a different view. So I called a roommate. And the roommate said to me, "Oh, she's such a sweet girl." The teachers all said, "You're a wonderful girl." The roommate said, "She's such a sweet girl. She would do anything for anybody at any time." Now, since she said that, a red light went off because that's not balanced. She would do anything for anybody at any time. Did not follow it up the way I should have, and the shidduch progressed. They'd gone out 7 times, which in Shidduchim is considered, about the average 7 to 8 times, whatever it is. And they'd gone out, and then on Motzei Shabbos, he was a Talmud of mine, and he was going away for Shabbos. I said, Motzei Shabbos, you're going to close it up. I expect so Motzei Shabbos, the phone rings. I picked it up on the first ring, and I expect to hear a mazel tov. They're engaged. He said the whole thing's off. What happened? In the last meeting, stuff came out. She started talking. She had a whole background of emotional disturbance. And do anything for anybody at any time was really a compensation for her behavior when she was younger. So chesed, we are people who do chesed. But chesed does not mean that you are taken advantage of. Exactly where the line is not always a clear line, but there is a certain line. So, for example, a guy knocked on the door of a Jew. A Jew sat down to eat supper. Now, a Jewish man, there's a knock on the door, and he gets up, and it's a guy who came collecting for some worthy cause or other. So the man invites him into the house, he takes him into his room, sits down with him, schmoozes with him for 15 minutes, and he gives him a piece of cake and some coffee, and he writes him out a nice check, and the guy leaves. So the wife says to him, Herschel, what happened? You just sat down, you were in the middle of supper. Why did you do that? You're in the middle of supper. He said, look, I know of a halacha that says that you cannot interfere in the middle of Shmon Esrei. And I know of a halacha that says you cannot interfere in the middle of Kriya Shema. I don't know of any halacha that says you're not allowed to interfere your supper. Would they interfere your supper to help somebody? So you understand, it depends what your perspective is. Some people have, this is our policy. We have a policy. We don't interrupt in the middle of supper. Well, your policy may be wrong. If you're living in Stone, that's your policy. But that's not what you do. What do you mean you have a policy? We have a policy. We don't do. I have a policy, though. I drive my car. I don't pick up people at bus stops. You have a policy? What kind of policies? Then you deserve 4 flat tires. What do you mean you have a policy? People at a bus stop, you can fulfill a Torah command of doing a chesed, giving people a ride. I didn't know they needed a ride. You mean they're staring at the bus stop, admiring the literature there? I mean, what do you think they're standing at a bus stop for? What does it take to stop anybody need? I'm going in this direction. So it's inconvenient? Of course it's inconvenient. That's why we get rewarded for it. If it wasn't inconvenient, we wouldn't be rewarded for it. So the Torah begins here with Avram Avinu who's standing at the open entrance of his tent. He's in pain. He just had a circumcision. He's 99 years old. And what's he doing at the entrance of his tent? He's looking for guests. He's looking for guests. Because in Avram Avinu is chesed is so much part of him, he can't live without giving to other people. He can't live without doing for other people. There's a doorman in the United States who won a $5 million lottery in New York. Won a $5 million lottery. The next day he went to work. So they said to me, listen, they said, Raul, you can afford to go do something else now. He said, hey, everybody's got to help somebody. That's what you got to do. So I want money. So what? What's I got to do by my job? I get to help people. And that's his purpose in life. That's a Torah. That's how a Jew views life. We're put here to help other people. Why does the Torah start with this over here now? God visits the sick. And by the way, when you visit sick people, visit them for their good, not for your good. Sometimes people want to do a chesed. They're so caught up in doing the chesed that they forget that they're doing chesed for the other guy. So you go to the hospital, you drive 30 miles, get to the hospital, the guy's sleeping. And so you kind of like, are you sleeping? Not anymore. Or somebody called our house the other night, 12:30, wanted to talk to my daughter. So I opened the phone. My wife was asleep right now. I wasn't hitting falling asleep yet. So I answered it. Hello. He says, oh, hi. Did I wake you up? I said, no, I had to get up to answer the phone. Oh, okay. so what do you call it? So sometimes you go to visit the sick. Make sure you're visiting for them. The guy's asleep, so let him sleep. So then people kind of slam the door on the way, close the door real loud as if he'll wake up. You're there for him, not for you. And if you do sit down on TV, they always used to sit down. The guy comes in, sits in the room. The guy's lying in the hospital. He sits down in the bed. The guy, how are you doing, Frank? Was it that bad? You're sitting on my broken leg. The guy sits right on. See, when you're visiting the sick, you gotta watch out for the sick. That's the idea over here. Now, there's another reason why the Torah starts with this. There's a major contrast. We're going to see later in the Parsha, the Torah, and we'll see later this week, we're going to go into some vivid descriptions of the people of Sodom. The ultimate wickedness in the Torah where they have to be destroyed. And they're overturned, the wicked people of Sodom. So the Torah wants us to teach us an eternal lesson over here. You've got God telling Avram Avinu, he's about to inform him that he's going to overturn Sodom. In the continuation, he's going to inform him that he's destroying the city of Sodom. The Torah wants us to see the contrast. And Avram Avinu, being visited by God, who himself is looking to do chesed, and he's being informed about the destruction of the anti-chesed city. There's the contrast Rav Hirsch points out. That's the contrast that we have to take with us all the time. We are Avram Avinu chesed. Sodom is destruction. I think I might have told you, there's a rabbi in America who's a very in-your-face rabbi. His congregants love him, but he has no hesitation of putting people in their place, which pulpit rabbis, you got to have a lot of guts to do that. So that's why he's on a second shul now. because the first shul didn't appreciate him telling the husbands that their wives' shaitels are too long. So they bought out his contract and he opened up his own shul. So he's got a few rules. One of the things is that after Shabbos, if his wife tells him a certain woman was not dressed in shul, he will call them up and say, listen, you could do better. Or if somebody's talking incessantly during shul, he'll call them up and let them know that they got to. He's very much, couples come to counsel, marriage counseling with him. He tells the husband, listen, you're behaving very inconsiderately, and get your act together. So he had one guy. They made a kiddush for a girl in the shul. Somebody had a daughter, so they made a kiddush after shul. So they had a big kiddush in the backyard of the grandfather's backyard. So he comes to the house, and he comes over to the grandfather. He says, "Hey, Hal, Mazel Tov, wonderful simcha. I just noticed there's a sign on your door. It says no solicitations." So where'd you get that sign, in Sdom? So he goes, "No, Rabbi, we didn't, we got a lot of people knocking on the door over here asking for money all the time, He says, so I got a better idea. Take the Mezuzah off your front door. All the guys collecting for the Jewish causes, they'll say, no, the Mezuzah. They won't knock on your door." He says, "I can't take off the Mezuzah. It's a Torah command. You have to have a Mezuzah." He says, "The Torah command to do chesed. Get the sign off your door, Al." And that's the attitude. There's another guy, there's a story about a guy who kept getting broken into. So he goes to the Jewish guy in the office. He says, "What should I do? I keep getting broken." He says, "Hey, take a mezuzah. Put a mezuzah on your door." Because mezuzah gives you protection. The guy says, "Great." Puts up the mezuzah. And a few weeks later, he comes over to his friend and says, "I took off the mezuzah." He says, "Why? Was it protected?" He says, "Yeah, I haven't had any break-ins. But I get so many knocks on the door from Jewish guys collecting, it's costing me more money than the burglars. Send the burglars in." So the what do you call it? That's why the Torah starts out over here. Now the second thing here is a very, very important rule, for everybody, and it's an important rule for Balei Tshuvas especially. The Torah says over here that Avram is sitting there, and then the three men come to the house, and Avram Avinu makes a big repast. We'll see the details in a second. So Avram Avinu is sitting there, and he's concerned. What's he waiting for guests? He's desperate to have guests right now. Okay, sometimes you'll have better days. There seems to be a desperation here. Question number one. Question number two, when the guests finally arrive, so he makes them a feast. The Gemara says each one of them is served tongue. He shechts 3 calves for 3 guests. I mean, even yeshiva guys who go in and all you can eat, $20 all you can eat. There's a limit. These guys, he checks 3 calves. There's actually a restaurant in New York that has like one of these $20 all you can eat. All you can eat. When the yeshiva guys are home for vacation, they take off the sale because they know they're going to, finish. The yeshiva guys don't even wait for the animal to be slaughtered. So they don't do it. During the year, it's housewives coming in. They start with a soup and a salad. Have a white piece of chicken, and they go. And the yeshiva guys, they, keep the vegetables off the table here. So they take off. So he serves these guys each one a whole tongue. I don't know if you're a tongue guy or not, but that's a big piece of meat. And he selects 3 calves. Apparently that was the fanciest cut of meat. Tongue is the fanciest cut of meat. You like tongue, Aaron? I don't. You guys like tongue? No, either you love it or you hate it. It's one of those things, either you love it or you hate it. And I got very little respect for those who like it. So probably guys eat tongue, probably drink cream soda with it. Yeah, probably somehow there's a combination. So what do you call it? They have the tongue. And he serves them. Why? Why is he making such a feast? Well, you didn't have anything in the refrigerator. You didn't have any meat. You couldn't serve him a meal. You got to make him such a... The answer is like this. So pay attention carefully. Avram Avinu is very nervous here. He's very nervous, and let's just back up. Let's introduce one other idea here. There's a man named Mamre. He's an Elonei Mamre. Mamre is the owner of apparently this whole region. He's got Avram's living on Mamre's property. And the Medrash says that when God said to circumcise, he went and took counsel with Mamre. He got Mamre's advice regarding the bris milah. What do you need advice for? God said to do it. What do you have a question whether you should listen to God or not? What do you need advice? So the commentators explain, what he was asking him? He said, look, if I do the bris milah, if people are going to be driven away. People are going to say, that's what you do. You cause pain to an 8-day-old baby? I understand I have to do it. Maybe we should just do it privately. I don't want people, but who knows what people are going to think. So Mamre says, don't do it privately, do it publicly. Do it in public. Don't worry about what people think. If God said to do it, just do it. Don't worry about people think. It's their problem, not yours. So Avram Avinu was worried about 2 things. Number 1, what are people going to think? Number 2, this is the sign that we're different. This is going to drive people away from me. I won't be able to be effective in spreading the word of God in the world because people are going to avoid me. They say, yeah, it's circumcised. It's the mark of difference. So the Torah says that when he sees 3 men coming, he's so happy. That's why he's waiting. Am I going to be able to continue my influence of having guests in the home, bestowing kindness, and spreading the word of God in the world? And so when they do show up, he's happy that's not going to be a barrier to his effectiveness based on what he would like to accomplish with his life. That's why he celebrates it with a repast. That's why he makes him such a fancy meal, number one. Number two, what Mamre is telling him is so important for Balei Tshuvas. There's a rule. You have to do what you have to do. You can't worry about what people think. But that has a qualification. That means I got to wear tzitzis and I have to wear my tzitzis out. What if people think it's messy? I can't help you if you think it's messy. I mean, it does look funny having strings, strings sticking out of your pants. Is not most people in the world don't do that. You have your thing. When I was in college, they were enchanted. People were enchanted by my yarmulke. I used to wear the B'nai Akiva, the knitted. I was in B'nai Akiva at the time. I had those B'nai Akiva knitted yarmulkes. So I remember, people were always fascinated by the yarmulkes. When I played basketball, the black guys called me Beanie. Not in any derogatory. They just said, yo, Beanie, take your shot. There was no, hey, pass the ball, Beanie. Take your shot. They were in a very result. They just called me Beanie. There was a young lady who was a Quaker. She was enchanted by the tzitzis. I don't know, what does the tzitzis mean? Then she asked me if the yarmulke, this was really creative, does the different colored yarmulke mean from a certain tribe? Which I thought that was very creative. The yarmulke. Okay. So people, it looks strange. It looks strange. I have no choice. God said to do it. I can't worry about what people think. On the one hand. On the other hand, if you could do something privately or less conspicuously because it will rub people the wrong way, you don't have to flaunt it. Remember we spoke about traveling, when you daven, when you travel. That's always fun. Driving when you're on the road. So I was always very, very, very self-conscious about it. About wearing a tallis and tefillin until I was sitting with my wife in an airport and I had a daven and I'm like, where am I going to go to daven? And all of a sudden I heard like a low rumbling sound, something like that. And this group of Hare Krishnas, they're wearing orange robes with the one thing sticking out of their head, that one thing that they're going to get dangled in the future from, they're sticking out, one ponytail sticking out. And I just look at them coming by the airport, I think, hey, they don't care what anybody thinks, why should I? So I just got up and davened. Doesn't mean you got to go daven wildly in public and show yourself off. Just stand in a corner as inconspicuously as you can and daven. You can't worry about what other people think. You got to do what you got to do. When you're dealing with non-religious relatives, you got to be very careful. My tzitzis don't have to be all the way dangling out, and sometimes you try to keep them as inconspicuous as possible. They may be disturbed by external signs of Judaism, which are not halakhically required. That could be anything like a gartel, a beard, black clothing, payas. It could be a lot of different things, which you feel good doing it, but respecting your parents is a mitzvah d'oraisa. And your parents are upset enough as it is, they become a religious fanatic in a cult. So you don't have to go and put it in their face and say, now I'll really make your friends talk, which is what your parents are worried about. What are their friends? You say, so you don't have to do it. And to the contrary, if it's not absolutely required by Torah, then in many cases you shouldn't do it because what is required by Torah is to honor your parents. So it's a very, very delicate balance. What cannot be compromised cannot be compromised. What's non-negotiable is non-negotiable, and try to do that in as least annoying way as possible. I had a guy once who I'll get to you once, I got a guy once who started becoming frum. He was what I call an out-of-control Baal Tshuva, and he was going home for a visit, so he bought himself a long coat. So I said to him, why did you buy the long coat? He says, I want to really show them. Right. Now, people want to really show. He's twice divorced, by the way. So people who want to really show them, it means that you're an inconsiderate person. And that's going to manifest itself in all relationships. And therefore, on the one hand, we have to do what we have to do. And I can't be concerned that you think it's messy or that whatever my minimums are. But I don't have to go and do it in a way that flaunts it and annoys people. And that's a mistake that many people make. Question, go ahead.
Is the Kaplan negotiable?
Kippah is non-negotiable. A kippah is non-negotiable. A kippah should be seen as non-negotiable. On the other hand, it doesn't have to be, a big Bukharian kippah if you don't normally wear one. You don't have to wear a shtreimel. I knew a guy whose parents were giving him a hard time. They're giving him a hard time about his becoming religious, and he was a modern Orthodox. His parents were Shomer Shabbos, and he had become ultra Orthodox, stone throwing Haredi, and his parents were giving him a hard time. At a certain point, he said to his mother, "Mom, if you don't get off my back, I'm going to marry one of those girls from Mea Sharm who shaves her head." That was his threat. I mean, I don't know who he's threatening. He's threatening himself. I don't know exactly what a threat that was. You can't threaten parents. You can't go threatening parents. It's disrespectful to threaten parents. On the other hand, you have to do what you have to. So you have to find out. See, you're asking a very important question. You see, a lot of times Baal Tshuvas would rather err on the side of caution, and they often drive a wedge in the relationships. Find out the law first. Find out the halacha. Rabbi Gottlieb once told me he had a guy from the yeshiva whose the parents invited him home for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So the son wrote his parents a letter detailing 10 reasons why it's forbidden for him to come home for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to be with his parents. His father was a very, very well-educated Reformed Jew who also knew Rabbi Gottlieb from the old days. So he sent Rabbi Gottlieb a copy of the letter. Rabbi Gottlieb said 9 out of the 10 reasons were wrong, and the 10th one was probably wrong. That's what he told me. So you'd like to be frum, and you'd like to err on the side of caution. Don't err on the side of caution. Learn the halacha and don't make people crazy. And some people say, "Oh, I don't think you're allowed to do that." What did I do? Well, you picked up your cup with your right hand. Yet it's perfectly acceptable according to halacha, and no, you're not liable for the stoning penalty if you did it. Right? Chayiv misa. Right? That's not the halacha. So learn the halacha and don't err at all. Okay, and always be pleasant. There's another medrash that says like this, very interesting medrash. When Avram Avinu, let's take a look at Pasuk Beis for a second. Vayisa, he raises his eyes. Vayar v'nei shlosha anoshim nitzovim alav. You see 3 men coming towards him. Vayar vayaratz likrasam. He goes and runs towards them. Pesach ha'ol v'yishtachu arza. So it says the word in Pasuk Beis. It says twice vayar. He sees. He sees there are 3 men, and he sees, and he went running towards them. So obviously the second Vayar, why does it repeat the word Vayar? Why is Vayar repeated in Pasuk Beis? It says, Vayisa Einav, Vayar, he sees, V'nei shlosha anoshim nitzovim alav. Vayar, he saw, Vayaratz likrasam bezal v'yishtachu arza. He saw, and he ran towards them. We know he saw, it already says he saw. So Rashi says that the first Vayar is vision. Take a look at Rashi. It's the first column, about 10 lines from the bottom of the first column in Rashi. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Ma'u vayar, vayar shtei pamim. Why does it say vayar twice? Harishon kimashma'o. The first one is exactly as it sounds. He saw them. He saw them. Ve'asheni loshon havono. And the second one is an expression of understanding. I see. It's like somebody says, "Oh, I see." The see over there doesn't mean physical vision. It means I understand. Nistakel shayu nitzavim makom echad. He looked and he saw them standing in one place. That was the physical vision. He sees these 3 guys and they're standing. The Havini understood. Why are they standing there? Shalohayu rotzim la'atricho. They didn't want to trouble him. It's like you're going, but we're standing here. Let's see if he understands. Sometimes in life, all you got to do is, there's an expression, "Dai l'chakima b'ramiza." A wise man gets it with the hint, right? I really don't want to bother you, but if I come over and walk right in, I'm standing right here by the opening of your tent, or I'm out in the desert on a hot day and I'm standing there, you'll understand I probably need something. Do you guys need anything? No, we're fine. We got plenty of sand. No, we couldn't need. What could we possibly need in a broiling hot desert, where we have no provisions? What could we possibly need? Sometimes in life, don't ask, just do. That's real. Can I help you? No, you can't help me at all. Don't ask. Just go and start doing. People need help. By the way, somebody once said, when you have a guest in your home, what's the first thing you do for a guest when he walks into your home?
Give him a chair and water.
Give him a chair and water is second thing. Coats could be one of it's also on the list. So, what's that?
Restroom.
That's right. Guest walks in your house. First thing you say to guest is, "I'll give you something to eat." If anybody needs a bathroom, it's over there. Because people are very embarrassed to ask where the bathroom is. And eventually they say, is there a bathroom here? Well, yeah, we do have one. Were you taking a survey? So the first thing is, in order they should be, you don't have to make it like, hi guys, if anybody needs it, hi guys, come on in. You have a seat, make yourself comfortable. There's a bathroom right over there. And right away, it should be one of the first things you do for guests. The other thing, by the way, if a guest ever shows up at your house, the most important physical comfort for the guest is a good bed to sleep in. You have to provide them with a good bed. The bed has to be, the food doesn't have to be gourmet. The bed has to be gourmet. So the guy's tired, the guy's traveling, the guy needs to sleep. And the other thing a good host knows is, what does the guest need? What does the guest really need? And the last thing he needs is to hear you talking a whole lot. And often guests just want to sit, they want to be left alone. When I travel a lot, I have some hosts who get it, and some hosts who do not get it. And I have certain hosts who just leave me alone. I don't need anything. I need your bed. I'm on my own schedule here. I'll eat outside the house. I don't want to, don't make food for me, because I'm in a working situation. I just need a place as a base. Then you have the other hosts, the good hosts. The good hosts who are so good that you never want to stay there again. They're such good hosts. So a little bit you owe it to him, and if that's what he wants, but I'm not talking about from your perspective. I'm talking about from being a host. Being a host means anticipating what does your guest really want. Same thing when it comes to Shabbos table. A guy comes out, you put out fish here try the fish. No, try it. No, try it. Try the fish. No, I really don't want to try it. No, just try my gefilte fish. Yeah. Hey lady, I really don't, what are you doing it for the guests? You're not doing it for the guests. Listen, there's food on the table. You guys eat what you want. Don't eat what you don't want. Don't bother me. I'm eating myself. So don't pressure people for them. People are adults. People know what works and what doesn't work. Now, there's some interesting medrash here. Listen to what this medrash said. The medrash says that when Avram Avinu had the circuit, he sent out his trusty slave Eliezer to go find him guests. And Eliezer came back and said, I didn't find any, boss. So Avram Avinu says, you can't rely on slaves. And he goes out and he finds the guests. That's what the medrash says. Okay? Now, it's a bit peculiar. These are angels at the end of the day, right? They showed up over there. What do you want from him? Eliezer went out. There were no guests there. So what do you want? How can you say, well, I can't rely on slaves? Right? How could, why? What does that mean? What does that mean? So the answer is, it's very similar to the wife who says to her husband, can you go in the back room and get me a pink towel? Where is it? Second drawer from the bottom on the right. The husband's there and the wife is waiting. Well, I don't see any. She comes walking right past him, just reaches in and takes it. There it is, right in front of his eyes. What happened? The answer is that you can't rely on husbands. That's true. That's 100% true. What if she would have said to him, listen, there's a blueberry pie in the drawer over there. Fresh baked blueberry pie in the drawer. Husband wouldn't have any problem finding it. The answer is either you didn't care about finding it or you don't want to find it. Right? So you send out Eliezer out to the desert and go find some guests. He's the slave, he's the attendant. What does that mean for him? What? You're going to be doing some work if you bring him home, right? Okay, if they're there, but how hard is he really going to look for it? Do you really want the guests? Are you really looking for the guests? And other than life, sometimes, I'd like to do chesed, but I never find opportunities to do chesed. Yeah, really? Really? You never find opportunities to do chesed? I guarantee you, if I paid you $100 per chesed, you'd find opportunities. Right? You didn't find the opportunities because you weren't really want to do it. If you wanted to do it, you'd find all sorts of opportunities to do chesed. There are plenty of opportunities to do chesed. All you got to do is really want to do it. Ein davar omed lifnei haratzon. You could tell by somebody's. Most time people say, I haven't got the energy, I haven't got the strength to do it. You got the strength, you don't have the willpower. You have the strength, you don't really want to do it. That's usually that's usually the impediment in life. And this happens with husbands and wives all the time. She sends you to find something for her. I could care less if it's a pink towel. And then the husband comes back with the pink towel. She goes, not that one. I meant the real pink one. Wasn't this pink? Well, it's kind of off pink. I see. How silly of me, considering that the dishes are going to be insulted being dried by an off pink one as opposed to a pink one. Say, I don't care. It wasn't that important to me. Wife comes in, boom, there it is, right in front of your eyes. The answer is, you gotta want. I shouldn't tell you this, but the only time my wife ever got the last word on me, ever, maybe a second time, actually. There were only twice she ever got it. The first was when I proposed. I said to her, do you want to get married? She said, to who? The only other time she ever got the last word on me was I was once preparing a Gemara shir. And she was in the kitchen doing whatever it is that women do in the kitchen. And I came into the kitchen, I said, you cannot imagine how much pressure it is. Every day I have to prepare a Gemara shir, and I have to know the Gemara well. Women don't learn Gemara. You can't imagine how much pressure it is. You can't imagine. You don't learn Gemara. So giving her a good speech. So she was ignoring me. And in the middle of the speech, the lights go off. Boom. So I go out into the hall. We got the electric box. I'm flipping switches. Nothing. That is a doorknob. She's, no. I said, 1 second. I'm checking. Boom, boom, boom. She comes out. She wipes her hands on her apron. She takes a look. There's a little switch there. Wasn't there 10 seconds earlier. A little switch. She flips the switch. The lights go on. Now, that's bad enough. It's like, oh, boy, that was a bad defeat. And then I'm just looking at the thing, and I got nothing to say. And she looks at me and goes, would you like help preparing your Gemara shir, Rabbi Kaplan? And she walked off into the sunset. Yeah, that was bad. Oh yeah, come here and say that. That was a pretty, but that was a TKO. That was a double TKO. Hit the guy when he's down. So Eliezer is showing you now. There's a very interesting Gemara, a medrash, another medrash. The medrash says a guy walks into a base medrash for the first time. Pay attention to this medrash. Fascinating medrash. The medrash says a guy walks into a base medrash for the first time, and he takes a look around. And he sees shelves full of books, full of Sfarim, everything, Shas, Shulchan Aruch, commentaries, Nach, just shelves and shelves. And the guy walks around, he takes a look. So the Medrash says, the fool takes a look and he says, how can anybody possibly learn all this? And he turns around and he walks out. The wise man says, well, I'll learn one halacha today. I'll learn another halacha tomorrow until I learn the entire Torah. That's the difference. That's the Medrash. The Medrash says, you know what that's comparable to? Kikar hatolui ba'avir. There's a loaf of bread dangling from the ceiling, a very high ceiling. There's a loaf of bread. The fool walks in and he takes a look. He says, I'm hungry, but, how am I possibly going to get up there? Can't get it down. So he turns around and he walks out. The wise man walks, he says, well, if he got up there, somebody must have put it up there. Somebody put it up there. I could get it down from there. So he takes a pole and he attaches another pole to it and he sticks it up there and eventually he fishes down the loaf of bread. Okay? So there's a very important lesson for the day. You know what it means? If you don't try to take down the bread, what does it really mean? It means you're not hungry. That's what it really means. If you're hungry enough, you get it down. I trust you guys. The base of Medrash is a very high ceiling, right? Okay. If I posted 5 $100 bills on the ceiling of the base Medrash, and you're the first guy, you walk into, what'd you say? Done, all right? You're the first guy who walks into the base Medrash in the morning, and you're putting on your tefillin, and then you put on your head tefillin. Ooh, there's an answer to a prayer right there, right? Now, I trust you. I trust you that you're going to get it down. I don't know how. I have no idea how. I trust you. Your resourcefulness, I don't give you, you'll hire a helicopter. I don't know what you're going to do. I trust you because that's something you really want. And you'll be smart enough to think, well, somebody put it up there. I got to figure out a way to get it down there. I don't care what you're going to do. You will figure out one way, what is it? Because you're hungry. And that's why you want to find guests. So Abraham goes looking for guests. Oh, you know how much he wanted to look? You know how much he wanted guests? He wanted guests so much that God even brought angels. Person really wants it, Kodesh Baruch will provide it for you. If you really want it, he'll provide it for you, even if otherwise it wouldn't be there. That's how much Abraham wants to do the chesed. So he goes out and invites these guys in. Okay, now, take a look at, in the commentaries also point out that the word Vayeira means this thought process involves thinking what we spoke earlier about what the guests really need. Now, I want to show you a fascinating rule in raising children. I don't know if we're going to get through the whole thing today, but I want to show you something. Take a look at Pasuk Gimel. We're going to read Pasuk Gimel, Pasuk Dal, and Pasuk Zayin. Vayomar, he says, Adonai, my masters, Im nomotza sichein beinecha, if I find favor in your eyes, al nasavar me'avdacha, please do not pass. Stay here. I want to host you. And then he says like this, Yukach na me'at mayim, let some water be taken. In other words, he's giving an order, one of his attendants, somebody bring water. V'rachatzu ragleichem, and you wash your feet, v'ishanu tachas ha'etz. And then you'll lean down under the tree and you lie in the shade. Now, take a look at one more pasuk. Take a look for a second, skip ahead to pasuk Zayin for a second, 4 lines from the bottom. Ve'el habokar rotza Avram ran to the cattle. Vayikach ben bokar rach v'tov, he takes a young calf. Vayiten el hana'ar, he gives it to the lad, which is Yishmael. Vayamar la so, and he quickly does it. He slaughters it and he starts to prepare it. Now, I want you to look at Rashi and Pasuk Zayin for a second. It's on the second column, and I want you to look 6 lines from the bottom on the second column. Elanar ze Yishmael. The lad is Yishmael. And why did he have Yishmael do this? Lechancho b'mitzvos. To train him to do the mitzvahs. Hey, Yishmael, get busy helping with the guests. Now, very interesting. He does the same thing when it comes to let the water be taken. He sends somebody off to take the water. So the Gemara says, anything that Avram Avinu did himself was provided for the Jewish people themselves, by God himself. And anything he did through an agent was provided for the Jewish people through an agent. So for example, he says, I will take bread. So God rained down manna on the Jewish people. He sends somebody else to get the water. So then it took Moshe Rabbeinu to hit the rock and bring out the water. God didn't just have the water pour out like the manna. Why didn't God just make an automatic a fountain, a menorah fountain? That would be nice with 8 spouts where you could drink out of it. Why didn't God make a menorah fountain out of the ground? You did it through an agent, then it'll be done for your children through an agent. What does that sound like? It's like there's an implied criticism here. Sounds like there's an implied, Avram Avinu, yeah, you brought in the guests. What are you sending other people to do it for? That's very strange. What does it say in Pasuk Zayin? Why did he do it? To train him to do the mitzvahs. So, why is there criticism? Training to do the mitzvahs is a wonderful thing, isn't it? You don't train your children to do mitzvahs? Says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, sure you train your kids to do mitzvahs. That's not how you train them. Not how you train kids to do mitzvahs. You don't train kids to do mitzvahs by forcing them to do mitzvahs. You train kids to do mitzvahs by the way you do mitzvahs. Kids imitate. By example. In other words, there's a very big difference between controlling, forcing, and training. You could force kids. Of course you could force kids because you're bigger and stronger. Like Lucy once said to Charlie Brown, to Linus. Lucy came over to Linus and said, do you want me to knock your block off? It's one of his, do you want me to knock your block off? So he said, Linus used the diplomatic line, which I've used many times. Well, you're bigger than me, stronger than me, and faster. And in matters like this, I'm totally at your mercy. So she looks at him, she goes, all right, and she walks away. And then Linus says something like, little diplomacy never hurt, So I've always used that. I'm bigger than you, stronger than you, faster than you. You're at my mercy, right? You're at my mercy. Or I'm at your mercy, as the case may be. Controlling people, forcing people, that's not chinuch. That's not training people. Training people is showing how the parents do it. That trains children. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was once asked, how did he train his kids to make brachas? How did he teach them to make brachas? So I never taught him to make brachas. I made brachas, my wife made brachas, so the kid made brachas. So if a father makes the bracha and he makes the bracha with, and he makes a proper bracha, the kid will make a proper bracha. If a father just goes, forget, that's how the kid's going to make the bracha. Kids will do what their parents say. Obviously, you have to tell them certain things they have to do. He's telling you the rule is the kids see through the hypocrisy. There was a kid once, terrible story, you love it. There was a kid was from a frum home and he went off. He left the bath. So one of these experts on dealing with these kinds of kids, he calls him and he says, what happened? He says, my father was always talking about learning and davening and doing mitzvahs. He was always talking about it. But then one day, the next door neighbor drove up with a brand new Volvo. My father was talking about that Volvo. His eyes were glowing when he spoke about that Volvo, like the O's in the word Volvo. Says his eyes were never glowing when he talked about Gemara and mitzvahs and anything else. That's when I knew what was really important to him. Okay, the kid's looking for an excuse. I don't say the kid's looking for an excuse, so he blamed it on that. But what he's saying, there's a big truth to it. Kids see what you're enthusiastic about. Kids see what, I was once sitting at the table eating. Wife is chasing kids around the house, getting them bathed, getting them put into bed. And I'm sitting there eating supper, and my 5-year-old, he walks over to me. At the time, now he's 17. At the time, he's 5 years old. He walks over, he puts his elbows on the table, chubby with a chubby little face. He puts his elbow on the table and he's looking at me. And I'm eating, and I'm looking at him. And at a certain point, he said, Daddy, do you love to eat? So I looked at her and said, do I love to eat? Then I said something lame like, we don't love to eat. We eat, we strengthen ourselves for Hashem. We could serve Hashem, that sort of thing. Scram, kid. I'm trying to eat supper. And I realized, how come the kid never came over to me and said to me, Daddy, do you love to learn Mishnayos? That he never said. So he apparently saw a different level of enthusiasm in Mishnayos and eating. Right? You understand? Kids see. And that's training of kids. So, Aravini, you want to train Yishmael to do mitzvahs? Beautiful. Go shech the cow b'simcha. And watch kids, show kids how happy you are about doing mitzvahs, then the kids will see. That the kids will see. Not that you tell the kid what to do. So that's not, you're controlling the kid. That's not training. Yeah.
But some kids don't listen.
Then they're not going to listen the other way either. They'll only stay controlled as long as you are able to control them. Once he's 14, goodbye. Go control a teenager. There's absolutely, I remember growing up, my father always said, there is absolutely nothing you can do with a teenager who says, I won't, or I don't want to. There's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Can't you get to use physical force on him? What can you throw him out of the house? There's no way to get him to do what you want to do unless you've raised him with both a loving relationship where he doesn't want to disappoint you, not because he's afraid of you. He doesn't want to disappoint you, and he feels that what you've raised him with has created something that he really enjoys. And the goal with children, if you want to raise children, you have to make sure Yiddishkeit is enjoyable. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. I have to go to Rabbi Geffen. I have to meet with Rabbi Geffen. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. It's of vital importance.